What's going on, guys? Here's the second video for the day. We got to talk about Cleanspark's mining update. They just released it here, and hopefully it's not an April Fool's joke because I'm quite impressed. I'm quite happy with it. There are a couple things we have to talk about on it. Now, if you didn't watch my last video, I talk about Iris Energy and some recent news, but I also talk about Cleanspark and what's going on with insider selling, what's going on with the dilution news. I won't be talking about that in this video. If you want some light shed on that, check out my last video. I'll leave it at the end screen for you. But we have some interesting things mentioned in this mining update. They talk about potential for mergers and acquisitions. Let's get started on this video, guys. If you like this content, make sure you like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. Check out the links down below for some free stocks and cryptos. And the link to the mining update will be down below for you as well. Let's get started. And let's talk about this mining update. We will check out the chart in this video as well. I'll give you my thoughts on what's going on with the chart. But Cleanspark saw a great month here for their Bitcoin mining. They mined 806 Bitcoin in March, which is up 24% from February. Their Bitcoin holdings now has surpassed 5,000 Bitcoin. And as said by the CEO, Zach Bradford, March results were the payoff for our hard work and tremendous growth over the last few months, as it was the first full month with the Sandersville expansion and our newly acquired sites in Mississippi online, bringing our entire operating hash rate to over 16 exahash per second with 17 exahash imminent. And their current hash rate actually as of this mining update is 16.4 exahash. Continuing on, the result was a record amount of Bitcoin mined in the last full month before the halving. The halving will take effect towards the middle to the latter half of April, but the positive here will be they should sell their Bitcoin at a much higher price than they sold in the month of March. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We will touch on that in just a second. Let's continue on. Zach Bradford also says, I'm also pleased to report that our Bitcoin treasury has grown to over 5,000 Bitcoin. Pair that with our current cash balance of over 300 million, and we are well on our way to taking advantage of what we expect to be one of the most active merger and acquisition seasons ever experienced in our industry. That's right, in a couple months, who knows, maybe sooner, we'll probably hear about some interesting acquisitions by Cleanspark. It's very likely we'll hear about new facilities being purchased and acquired. One thing that's really interesting and great is their Bitcoin miners are already fully funded, and that's part of the next paragraph. With the capital on hand, we now have fully funded the remaining payments of the 160,000 S21s that we announced in January. We are prepared to thrive post-halving. We're now looking beyond halving, expect to be fully active over the coming months given that we have the balance sheet and capital tools to make us one of the most aggressive acquirers in the industry. Opportunities are prevalent, and we believe the consolidation prospects, which have been discussed abundantly throughout the industry for some time, are more relevant than ever before. Being prepared to act on the opportunities that meet the Cleanspark standard will be our focus for the balance of the year. We now have all the tools in place to be best positioned for action. We look forward to sharing more in the coming weeks and months as we continue our extraordinary journey to 50 exahash per second while maintaining one of the most energy efficient Bitcoin mining fleets in the world. We are very likely to hear them making a lot of moves with this newly acquired capital, with the money that they're going to get from dilution. I know short term that's a negative, but the positive is they are going to aggressively grow. They are going to remain among the top miners, maybe one day becoming the largest miner in market cap, surpassing Mara. They have definitely risen through the rates from the last Bitcoin cycle. Now, looking at the actual numbers, as said, they mined 806 Bitcoin in March. So far in 2024, they mined 2,031 Bitcoin. Their total holdings are now 5,021 Bitcoin. They now surpassed 5,000 Bitcoin in holdings. They sold 3.37 Bitcoin in March. This is fantastic. We want to see them hodl that Bitcoin. That Bitcoin is going to rise in price, and it's in their best interest, in my opinion at least, for them to hold that Bitcoin. They currently have a deployed fleet of 133,963 machines up and hashing. They're at a 24.63 joules per terahash, which is very, very efficient. A lot of miners are up more towards 30, and they sold this 3.37 Bitcoin at an approximate average of 58,800 per Bitcoin. Their March daily Bitcoin average was 26 and reached a high of 28.14. The exciting thing is, this isn't much Bitcoin sold, but next month, if we hear of them selling any Bitcoin, it'll be at a much higher price than this $58,000 Bitcoin. We also have an update on Dalton. Construction of the company's recent Dalton acquisition is nearing completion. 15 megawatts of power are scheduled to be turned on early this week. We expect to promptly begin racking miners upon energization. Once the miners are racked, this site will bring Cleanspark's hash rate to over 17 exahash. It's expected to be fully operational on or before April 12, under 2 weeks away. This site marks the first step of adding 3 exahash in the coming quarter to reach 20 exahash. I'm honestly quite impressed with this mining update. We have a lot of growth coming to us. They're sitting really pretty with some cash on hand. Their last quarter was profitable. We should see another profitable quarter coming up as well, going over the January, February, and March months. It's good to see that they're holding on to that Bitcoin, barely selling any. And we'll also likely hear about potential acquisitions, facilities being bought, maybe mergers. Who knows? But let me know what you guys think about this mining update. I think it's really big news, but the market doesn't seem to care. The market's more worried about the dilution, about the insider selling, which, as I mentioned in the last video, this was a prearranged plan. The timing just seemed a little strange because of the dilution and insider selling going on at pretty much the same time. But like I said, if you want more about that, check out my last video. It will be at the end screen for you. But let's take a look at Cleanspark's chart. Sorry for the yelling in the background. Now, looking at Cleanspark, we have been dropping a bit. We are no longer overbought. For those longs looking to add, I think this is an okay time to add. I think it will go a little lower though. Could be wrong. But, you know, I think there's a possibility we head down towards our 50 MA. But to remind you guys, Cleanspark is still bullish. We are still above a 50 and a 200 MA. They are trending upwards. They are in the correct order since our golden cross. And I suspect we will not see a death cross until likely probably late 2025. Bitcoin, the Bitcoin miners, for the most part, are going to remain bullish. That said, we can short-term drop. We can probably head down towards $15 or so. This was a previous strong level of support. I think this would be a solid time to be a buyer, a great time to be a buyer of Cleanspark. And one thing to realize, you know, is when stocks typically get so far away from their moving averages, they do tend to come back down, at least test them, and see if the bull market can continue. We are still very far from our 200 MA, which is sitting at 8. And you know, some people are waiting for this gap fill. Some people are waiting for much lower prices. If you don't care too much, you know, if you're more of a patient type of investor, you're not really looking to build on the pain days, you're just kind of looking to add on some deep, really good discount days, that's fine. Everyone has their own strategy, but I personally don't find this gap being filled. Is it possible? Of course. But as I've said before, you know, this is a breakaway gap. These breakaway gaps are less likely to fill than a typical common gap. This breakaway gap was a gap on great earnings, a profitable quarter, huge volume, the type of volume we didn't see since the previous bull market back in 2020, 2021. They're expecting another profitable quarter. They're expecting more than $25 million in revenue growth quarter over quarter from the quarter we just reported in the 70 millions. We have $106 million expected. So in my opinion, you know, if we start heading to these moving averages, whether it's the 50 or the 200, if you're looking at Cleanspark long term, these pain days, these negative days where you're seeing a 10% down day, these are the times you want to be a buyer, you want to be bullish, you want to be adding. Looking short term, you might want to avoid this until we find a new floor, until we find some sort of support. And just reading current sentiment, you know, seeing dilution, seeing insider selling, regardless of what's really going on with it, regardless of them being prearranged plans, you know, regardless of that, the market will see this as a negative for a little longer. Perhaps we continue selling off until we get to the halving. Make no mistake, I do think now is the time to be buying the Bitcoin miners as we approach the halving. Now is the time to really be focusing on adding to the miners over the next couple of weeks until we get to the halving. I do expect the miners generally across the board to pop after the halving. As I've said before, I do expect this to be kind of a sell the rumor, buy the news type of event. It's seen as a negative catalyst. Once this negative catalyst passes us, the market will realize that Bitcoin's price appreciation will more than overshadow the fact that these miners are taking half the rewards. But let me know what you guys think about this Cleanspark news. Let me know what you think about Cleanspark's chart. I think picking up some Cleanspark at the 50 MA would be a great add. But honestly, looking long term, and depending on your weighting of Cleanspark, it might not be a bad time to pick it up right now. Thanks as always for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.